Hey guys, this is Bruce from ConvoCourses. I do cybersecurity compliance every week around this time, every Saturday. Sometimes I'll just go crazy and do one a day, it wasn't easy to do that, by the way. But anyway, so I run a site called ConvoCourses.com where I teach information system security officer work for the NIST 837 along with 853 controls. I'm going to expand it at some point and do all things security compliance. It's just a matter of time. But for now, you can go ahead and check out the site. It's at ConvoCourses.com. It's got tons of material of which I'm a subject matter expert on. Security compliance is the main thing for NIST 800, but I also talk about how to get into this field as a cybersecurity person and where to start and things like that, and also how to do your resume, how to market yourself. I just happen to be pretty good at that, and I've been working remotely for the last, 6 years now. It's been a while. I can't remember, but I've been doing it for a long time. Before COVID, before all this stuff, I know how to get your foot in the door as far as being a remote worker. So that's another thing I talk about on the site. All right, so what I want to talk to you guys today about is something that is not normally talked about in cybersecurity. A lot of people, if you go on YouTube, you'll find a lot of people talking about courses on how to do ethical hacking or how to set up networks, or, take your pick of technical skills, right? There's tons of technical skills that you should have, that you can have, that's going to enhance your skill set as a cybersecurity person, which is great. But one thing I don't see a lot of people talking about is the soft skills. And it's ironic because the soft skills are probably as important. No, I would say they definitely are as important as the technical skills, because in cybersecurity, a lot of times what we're doing is we are actually talking to all walks of life within our industry. So it's very important that you know how to communicate with people. I want to talk to you about the number one soft skill. There's tons of soft skills you should know. Time management skills is one of them. Writing is one of them. Technical writing is one of them, especially if you're doing reports. So those are all really important. But let me just tell you, one of the most important, in my opinion, the most important soft skill that you need to have in any part of cybersecurity is communication. Communication, being able to speak, just like I'm doing now, being able to speak with people. And the trick is this. Let me tell you the trick about this whole thing. I'm going to bring up like a visual example here. So bear with me. I'm going to bring something up on the screen. And for those of you watching me on Facebook, I'll do the same for you. I'll get to any kind of questions, by the way. If you have any questions whatsoever, you guys want to talk to me about those, we can do that. We can do that in this session today. Let me see. I want to bring up a little screen here so you guys can see what I'm talking about as I speak. We're talking about tiers of an organization. I'm looking for like this little graphic that breaks it all down. Probably spelled tiers wrong. Okay, here, let me see. Here's one. Here it is right here. Yeah, here's a really good one right here. Okay, let me put this up for people on YouTube to see. All right, here we go right here. So this is what we're looking at. So one of the keys to communicating properly as a cybersecurity person is knowing who you're talking to, knowing your audience, right? And that's with any kind of writing, by the way, whether you're a creative writer or an essay writer or you're a journalist, whatever. One of the things that they teach you in college is you got to know your audience. So that way you know how to speak to them, right? Each audience has a different language. In cybersecurity, and I would argue it in IT in general, you have to know your audience, and you have tiers in that audience. What you're looking at here on the screen is a representation of the tiers within an organization. So the top tier would be the organization as a whole. And an example of that would be the CLevel Executives. These are people who are decision makers for the whole organization. They're looking at the impact to the whole organization, right? What's the bottom line for my organization? Is my reputation? Is it money? Is it whatever it is? Is it the people? Is it protection of my assets? Is it protection of the mission? Is it protection of the nation? Whatever it is, right? The mid tier is the mission business processes. This is your mid-level managers, your upper level managers, the people who are kind of running the show, the puppet masters, if you will. And then you also have the the lower tier, which is probably the most important because they're the ones who are making sure that the cart keeps going, right? They're the people who are in the weeds. These are your technical people. As a IT person, as a cybersecurity person in particular, you need to know how to talk to each one of these tiers. Let me explain what I mean by that. Each one of these people has a different language. And I'm going to start with the bottom tier. The bottom tier are your people in the weeds, your IT people. The language that these guys understand is extremely technical, very detailed and pedantic. That means they go into great detail about whatever you're talking about. That means you need to go into great detail about what we're talking about, right? Let's say, let me give you an example. Let's say we had an example of we had an audit, we had an assessment done from another organization, and they dinged us. We have a finding. We have a vulnerability in our organization, right? Something that we need to fix. And they said, look, your audit logs are off. We noticed that these audit logs are off. You guys need to turn these back on. Whereas a cybersecurity person, I might not have hands-on with that particular device. So I've got to go to my tier 3 people, my information system security admins, my administrators, my field techs, whoever is the administrator for that particular system that has those audit logs that are off, that the person that touches those systems and has privileges to that system. I need to talk to that person, right? So that's our example. We got to go talk about those audit logs. Now, off the top of the head, you might just go to them and be like, hey, we had an assessment. You need to turn on the audit logs on the Quad 4.6 systems, right? And you're thinking in your mind, well, they should know what the Quad 4.6, whatever that is, right? Whatever those systems are, they should already know what those systems are. That it should be easy, right? They just turn them on. That's it. No, for a technical person, they need to know specific details in that specific environment. You got to see the world from their perspective when you talk to technical people. They need to know, okay, what network is it on? If you have 2 or 3 different networks, what network is it on? Like what you got to tell me, is it internal network? Is it with the HR network? Is it what subnet is it? What network are we talking about? External, DMZ, internal? What is it? Which systems are we talking about? Can you be more specific? Like I have 1,000 systems I'm managing here, right? You got to be specific with them. You can't be, you got to be detailed. They got to know everything about what's going on, right? It's not as important that they know, okay, that we had an assessment, blah, 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 right? It might be enough for them to hear it from the manager. They don't necessarily need to know about this assessment you had. But yeah, you could tell them that. The most important thing is they need to know what IPs. You want to give them the IPs. The IPs, the port number that was scanned, the ports that are needed for the, if you have it, the port numbers that are needed for the audit logs, where the audit logs are going to go. Like if you have a server, you need to know what kind. Is it a Red Hat server? Is it Windows server? The best thing you can do is give them a list. If you already have it, give them a list of the servers listed, right? Give them that. Say, we need these servers to have these event logs turned on. You got a list of the event logs too, because you got to remember when they log in there, they're seeing 1,000 different events. Like you've got error events, you've got application events. You got to tell them we need these specific security events. We need to know when a person logs in and fails. We need to know whenever somebody tries to tamper with this and that file. We need to know, like you need to have them a list of the IPs, port numbers if you have them, because sometimes, especially if you're sending the audit logs over their network, right? They need to know which network it is, port numbers. They need to know which event logs. You got to be pedantic. You got to tell them specifically what you're doing. One of the things that's frustrating is that when I go and talk to them, sometimes they're like, they'll start asking, it sounds like they're trying to be like condescending, right? They'll ask me all these other questions. Well, which one is it? What's this? What's that? And it's like, I get frustrated because I'm like, look, you already know what systems it is. I just told you the system. Like, you can't be like that. You got to see the world from their perspective, and you got to know that they need specific IPs, specific event logs on specific networks. They got to know exactly what you're talking about. Okay. Now, if we're talking about your managers, it's different. It's different for managers because the managers care about the assessment. They care. So for them, you don't need to really go into each IP or whatever, or each event, right? You might want to mention that they're security events or whatever. But the most important thing for them is the mission and the business. How do I allocate resources? Do I have the resources? The resources meaning people. Like, do I have the people to do this particular job? And are they available And can they do that job, right? That's what so when you talk to them, it's different. You're gonna approach them and say, look, we had we had an assessment last week, right? The IG team came from the Department of Homeland Security, and they came and scanned our stuff. Here's the report, right? Here's the report. Here's where they had these audit logs. These audit logs right here, I don't know what audit logs to get. I don't know what audit logs to get. We got to figure that out, and I'm figuring that one out. But what I really need is help getting the IPs, because a lot of times if we're not hands-on, we don't know the IPs. We got to go to a subject matter expert to break it down to find out if we have all the IPs. Maybe when they scanned it, it doesn't have a complete list. We go to the manager, we tell them, here's the report from the assessment. What I need, here's what we need. Or we're going to get dinged again, right? That's going to affect our mission, right? Mission. They're all about the mission. So you don't have to go into the weeds with them, but they need to know the big picture. The big picture is super important to them. And now, what resources do I need, right? That's what they're thinking. What resources? So you're going to say, here's the assessment. Here's where we got dinged. We have audit logs turned off on these Red Hat systems. I need a Red Hat expert, right? I need our Red Hat administrator. I need to know which IPs that we need. We need 514 open. We're going to send that data over to this server over here, right? Okay, what do you need? I need an admin. I need a network guy. And I need a firewall guy, right? Those are the people that I need. And then they might go out and task those people to help you out. So big shift in perspective, right? The IT guy, the administrator, that dude's in the weeds. You got to be very specific with him. With the managers, they're thinking big picture, like how can I do this? What resources can we allocate to this, right? That's where their focus is. The last tier, let's look at this. Let me show you the screen here so you can kind of get what I'm saying here. The last tier is the upper tier. Tier 1, which is your C-level execs. These dudes don't have time to go into the weeds. They don't have time to mess around with the weeds, right? They're dealing with big corporate organizational type stuff. They don't have time to know each IP. They don't have time to know the names of the hosts of the systems. They don't have time. By the time you get to this person, you will have already talked to the manager. The manager will already have allocated resources properly. You will have already talked to the technical person. The only time you go to a C-level exec is when a decision needs to get made. Or if you kind of brief them on what has already happened, right? They don't have time to sit there unless it's an absolute emergency and a crisis, right? The system got hacked and all hell's breaking loose, and the disaster, even then, the incident response team is already doing what they need to do, and you're just briefing them on what's happening. That's it, right? But by the time you, as a cybersecurity person, gets to them, or an IT person gets to the C-level exec, you have all the details you need. You have an information overload. You have more than what you need by the time you get to the C-level exec. That's the CIO, the CSO, the chief executive officer, the chief security officer, the chief information officer, right? These people they're dealing with big funding issues. They're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of deals. They're dealing with large contracts with major vendors. They don't have time to be in the weeds talking about 5 servers that need audit logs turned on. When you get into the meeting with them, you want to get straight to the point. You do not want to be pedantic with them. That's the last thing you want to do, is go into great detail about the weeds and all that. You want to be as brief as possible. You got to keep it to an executive summary, a brief summary of what's going on, and get the hell out of there. If they ask questions, you have somebody on tap who can answer. If you can't answer it, and you don't know cloud that well, have your main cloud guy right there, either on the phone, on the call, or right there in the office with you, ready to talk. If they ask, hey, well, what's the bandwidth? What's the throughput of AWS? Like, well, I really would like to know that. You're not going to know that. So just have your right-hand man there ready to speak up, right? And that person could just remain quiet, let you talk. And if they ask any questions about that thing you're talking about that's real technical that you can't speak on, have them speak up. That's it. you want to be as brief as possible. A lot of times you'll be most nervous with the C-level execs, but those should be your shortest meetings, to be honest with you, because by the time you get in there, you have all the details. You're getting straight to the point. That's it. Unless there's some kind of a crisis or something's going on, they have more and more questions, then it's going to be a long meeting, a really long meeting. The reason why you don't really, what sucks about them asking a lot of questions, or if you start going into detail that prompts them to ask even more questions, is because what'll happen is they'll send you on these tasks to get more information, and it makes more work for you. And it's like, it's work that doesn't even need to be like, it's like kind of like, we're already working on that. Why do we need to do this again? Stuff like that, So that is one soft skill that I would say that I have realized that I have, that a lot of cybersecurity people don't talk about. Like your hackers out there teaching you that aren't gonna, your network engineering guys who are out on the internet, even your risk management framework guys, they're gonna tell you about the controls and stuff. They don't talk about this particular thing, which is super important, because this is most of your job, is talking to all these different organizations, different pieces of the stakeholders and stuff for your system. The soft skills are super important. I cannot stress it enough. This particular one, in my opinion, is the most important.